What's going on, everyone? Fearless Football Forecast here. NFL Week 4. It's crazy to believe that we're already about to be at the quarter point of the football season. It seems like it just started, but Week 3, my God, so many surprises. The Denver Broncos let up 70 points. First time that has happened since 1966. The Dallas Cowboys were upset by the Cardinals. The Baltimore Ravens were upset by the Colts. What is your reaction before we even get into this breakdown where we're going to provide our dog of the week, picks for every single week, and fantasy starts of the week? What's your reaction from week 3? Because week 3 for me was just a total disaster.
It was just a blast, quite honestly. I survived in most of my fantasy leagues, so I think that I got to just take everything in, and it was just so wild. There were so many upsets. I obviously lost in Survivor, but there was just so many upsets, so many points scored in just one game. It was just and it was really just a lot of fun. Like I said, I won in basically all my fantasy leagues, so I feel like if I got hurt by the Dolphins game, I'd feel a little bit different. But I got lucky pretty much every league. I either had a Dolphin or I didn't play against the Dolphin. So I'm feeling good about this week.
Yeah, I got burnt in a lot of leagues this week. For some reason, people decided to start Raheem Mostert in their flex for the only time that they ever will. And of course, it was that time. But the one positive thing, our dog of the week hit for a third straight week in a row. We're looking to make it 4 here. This is by far the most risky one. So I'll let you introduce it. But so far, we have hit with all 3 of our dogs of the week. And ironically, they've all been in the same division. This is the first time we're leaving the AFC North. We went Browns week 1, Ravens week 2, and Steelers week 3. We're staying in the North, but we're switching over to the NFC for this one.
Yeah, and you guys better put on your big boy pants for this one. We're going to go with the nasty ass Chicago Bears. That is correct. The Bears are going to win a game this year. I know it doesn't look like it, and I completely agree they've looked like dog shit. But in my thought process on this is the Broncos just let up 70 points this week. A lot of people would think you let up 70 points. This is a game where everybody on the team, all the coaches are going to be like, we need to come out and show the world that we're not completely horrible at football and we deserve to be on this football field. I don't think it's going to matter. I said it last week, and I'll get more into it. I guess now's the time to get into it. I was wrong about Justin Fields having a good fantasy day last week. He was my start of the week. I thought that he'd be able to run around or pass. He couldn't do either. But as we saw with the Broncos last week, they can't play defense. Pat Surtain is a good number 1 corner, and I think that obviously the Bears don't have a Tyreek Hill, but it's not like the Bears really emphasize their number 1 receiver, DJ Moore, anyway. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but they really don't. And I think that the biggest factor in this is that they're going to be able to ground and pound the ball and just milk the clock. And I think that both teams might try and do it, and I think that it'll help the Bears out. I'm hoping that the Bears just let Fields do his thing. The Broncos defense doesn't scare me whatsoever, and I think they're just going to run all over the place. So I know it's scary, but ride with us, boys. We got this.
Yeah, I like the Bears too a lot in this matchup. Obviously, we've been making sure that we agree on our dogs of the week. There were a couple that we mentioned this week. I know I was on the Dolphins. You were more on the Bucks. We couldn't necessarily shake hands on either of those, so we ended up going with the Bears. And the thing with the Bears is that for me, I think this is more of Denver's game to lose. Like you said, they are going to be coming out here just with so much to prove. And they're not as good of a team to where they can do that. You know what I mean? Like the Chiefs, after losing to the Lions in week 1, that's a team where like they're composed, they're coached well, they're ready, they have the talent to end up showing the next week that they're still legit. Whereas this Broncos team, I honestly just think that they're not going to be able to mentally bounce back from what just happened. And also, if you look at the construction of the Bears team, it is pretty similar to the Miami Dolphins, like having a very athletic quarterback. Even though DJ Moore hasn't been as great as we thought he's going to be, he's still been pretty consistent. I think that Moore is going to have a great game, burn them on the outside. They have 2 dynamic running backs in Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson. I know you're going to talk more later about Roschon. But I just think offensively, this team has the talent to spread the ball around in a similar way. Obviously, I'm not expecting 70 points, but in a matchup where it's going to be very high scoring and the Bears had a lot of hype coming into the season, I think that they're going to end up showing out this week and not just winning the game, but winning by double digits. And so far, every single one of our dogs of the week that we've called have actually ended up winning the game by a considerable margin. And another thing is just like I said, mentally they're going to be beat up. God knows what Sean Payton did to that defense in practice all week. Who knows if they're even able to make it to the game. The next thing is our touchdown scores. Last week we did end up bouncing back. So far, I think we're pretty solid on them. I think we're like either four of six or 5 of 6. Yeah, we're 5 of 6 so far. I'll start off with mine. I'm going to go with Najee Harris. Najee's just due. I mean, the Steelers' offensive line is still one of the better O-lines in the league. It's been shit on all year, and I think a big part of that is because it's been the 49ers defensive line, the Cleveland Browns defensive line, who really just kind of has now established themselves as one of the best in the league. And even though the Raiders don't have the best defense as a whole, their D line is still the best part of it. The Raiders' D-line is still the best part of their defense. And even if Jaylen Warren is utilized pretty much with the same snap percentage, which I honestly think is going to happen, Warren has looked like the better running back in the last couple of weeks. At the goal line, you're still going to give the ball to Najee. And I think the Steelers, against the pretty bad Texans defense, are going to end up being near that goal line a lot more often. Also, if you look last week in the Jaguars game, ETN was just shredding the Houston Texans. That was the only positive about that game for the Jaguars, was how good ETN was. And then when they got down within the 5, they ended up giving Tank Bigsby the carry. So in this same scenario, where even if I see Jaylen Warren being the reason why they are within the 10-yard line or 5-yard line, or even right at the goal line, I think that Najee's going to end up getting those carries, and he will be my touchdown scorer of the week. So far, I'm perfect this year. It's going to continue. Let's get it.
All right, and I'm going to go a little bit more bold with my touchdown scorer of the week. I know we both like him a lot this week. I'm going to go with Luke Musgrave. If you've been watching him play, he's been really, really good, and Jordan Love has just missed him, honestly, a decent bit. He had 2 almost touchdowns week 1, and he had another one 2 weeks ago, and then he had one this past week that it wouldn't have definitely been a touchdown, but he would have caught the ball at like the 15-ish yard line, and he had a bit of space, so he potentially could have taken it in if he got a nice angle and the defenders didn't. But he's being extremely used, and I'm wearing the Packers jersey. I'm repping them today because I'm proud of what they've been doing these past few weeks. I was big on them coming into the year, and I'm really happy with the way Luke Musgrave has looked. I think that obviously Sam Laporta statistically has been the best tight end, but if Jordan Love wasn't missing Musgrave on all these passes, I think he would at minimum be in the conversation of how good of a season they've been having. And I'm just hoping that Jordan Love can kind of settle himself down earlier this week and hit him consistently. And I'm thinking Musgrave's going to find a way in that end zone. I think he's going to have a huge day all over.
Yeah, I love Musgrave as well this week. I'm sure I'll be mentioning his name. He is due for a touchdown as well. Like you said, he's had a lot of just missed opportunities when he's been in the red zone. And it should come this week. I expect this game right now, the over-under is at 46. So they are expecting some scoring. And I even think that it does go over that margin. So I do see a lot of opportunities for Musgrave. Love it as well. Now moving into the next part of news is that there is no news this week. We don't really have any big news to talk about. I'm sure with the trade deadline, I'm expecting a lot of trades this year. So we might make our own separate videos on that, depending on how big the trade is. But definitely stay tuned for that. So we are just going to jump right into our breakdown, and we might as well start with the game that we were just talking about. It is week 1. Thursday night football, we got Lions, Packers. Packers at home, even though Lions are favored in this one. And the spread just keeps switching around. It opened up with the Packers as the favorites. Then Lions were 2.5-point favorites. Now the line has dropped back to almost even. And the Lions are minus 120, so a minus 1.5 favorite. I'm just going to say this is a game that I'm not wanting to touch from a financial standpoint. This is probably the best Thursday night game since the opener. And this is just one that I really just want to sit back and watch because it will show which one of these teams is going to get that early lead in the division. I do think that the Lions end up winning this. The Packers, the one thing that they have been really bad at defensively has been the run game. They've let up about 430 yards so far. And now knowing that David Montgomery might come back, that two-headed running back duo that did well against the Kansas City Chiefs is now going to be back together again. And I think that they end up winning this one, but I do think that it is very close. Regardless of what happens, I wouldn't be shocked if the Packers won. But this is a game where I'm not laying any money on the Lions. I'll probably just do some touchdown parlays and stuff like that because I like Gibbs. I like Musgrave. I like A.J. Dillon. I like a lot of players in this game more than I like the actual game itself. Like I think if you're a fantasy owner, you start Amon-Ra, you start Musgrave, you start Laporta, you start your running backs. You even start Jordan Love this week. I think he's a good start. Start Jared Goff. Packers have been even let Desmond Ridder have a lot of points on them. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. It's one of the ones that I'm more excited for this week.
I agree. I think this is one of the better games on the entire slate. Like you said, this is going to show who's going to take the lead early in the season. And I'm going to go with the Packers in this one. They are officially, Jair Alexander and Bakhtiari both are going to be out. They were out last week as well. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson are both still questionable. I'm kind of leaning towards them playing this week. But either way, you've seen they haven't been really dominant. They were dominant against the Bears. The Bears haven't looked great all season. But last week, one of the things coming into the year, I was bigger on the Packers. And it was just saying, just like Jordan Love, maybe he's better than we all think. Maybe he's not shit. And I think that he has, if one thing that you can't question about him, listen, he misses throws. It's weird. He's one of those guys who misses a throw and then two plays later, he puts one on a dime toward 30 yards downfield out of bounds or towards the boundary. But he's a gamer, man. That's really what last week showed me is he's a gamer. And whenever as long as he's under center, they're going to have a chance in every game. And I think they're going to be able to pull this one out.
Yeah, we're split on the pick, but we both wouldn't, be opposed to the other side winning on this one. And then we have an interesting game. We got our first international game of the year, 9:30 in the morning. We're going to wake up, get those beers ready, get an early buzz on. It's kind of like a pregame to the 1:00 slate. I like that a lot. Still anti the double Monday night games. I hated that again this week. But the Falcons taking on the Jaguars. Interesting line because the Falcons have been pretty damn good this year. And yes, it is London, which technically gives the Jags a home field advantage. But at the end of the day, it is a neutral site. The Falcons also played in Germany the last 2 years. So a lot of German fans might travel to the UK for this one and support the Falcons. So I wouldn't be shocked if the crowd's a little bit more split than usual at a Jags game in London. But the Jaguars are favored. I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons win this one. I know we haven't really talked about this game. At the end of the day, I'm still going to end up picking the Jags because I think that they desperately need to bounce back. Like looking at their initial schedule, I wouldn't have thought that they were 1-2 right now. You would have thought that they just rolled the Texans. But last week, the Jags had some issues, Every time they got close, they would make a big mistake. Like the fact that they let a fullback run back a kick return still baffles me all the way for a touchdown. It was just really bad tackling. And that kind of derailed the momentum of the Jags. And then Then Trevor started looking better the second half, and Christian Kirk had that big touchdown. And then on the next play, there was a fumble. And then the next drive, there was a pick. So every time that they were like close to digging themselves back, every time they made it a one possession game, it would just flip the script and go to two possessions. And against a team like the Falcons, you can't really do that because the Falcons' run game is so good that you're going to have limited time to actually play. I think this is a great matchup for Kyle Pitts. I have him in my DFS lineup. The more I'm talking about it, the more I think the Falcons are going to win, but I'm going to go with the Jags. I think Calvin Ridley desperately needs a bounce back performance.
Calvin Ridley revenge game. Yeah, I think that I'm just going to go. I think this is a pretty close game as well. I'm just going to go with Dougie P on this one. I expect him to kind of get his team in check and come back with a bounce back win. The only path to victory for the Falcons is if they just completely control the clock and run the ball out, which possibly could happen. Obviously, they're a great run team. But I agree. I'm going to go with the Jags as well. I think that they're going to know that this is, I mean, like you said, the past 2 weeks, they've been pretty abysmal, quite honestly. But they've also been unlucky, I feel like, at times. So I think that they're going to nice little bounce back spot in their actual hometown.
And up next, we got a close one here as far as Vegas goes. I don't know if I see it that close, but we got the Rams and the Colts. If you told me that the Colts were 2-1, I would be baffled, similar to how I said the Jags were 1-2. The Colts ended up picking up a victory last week in overtime against the Ravens with Gardner Minshew, not even with Anthony Richardson. That just is a shame on the Ravens. They could not move the ball that game. Like that game was the one that I had the most money on, so I was watching that game intently. The Ravens just could not get a first down. And with an experienced quarterback like Stafford, a young receiving core, a solid running back, and by far the better defense in this matchup, I love the Rams. I think the Rams are as free as air when it comes to a betting value on this game. -115. The Rams had that game in the beginning of the season where they shocked everyone against the Seahawks. I think that both those teams have kind of gone back to where you would have thought that they were before the season since then, with the Rams losing their matchup against the Niners, but the Niners look amazing. And I think that the Rams really want to be 2-2 right here. And I don't see the Colts starting out 3-1. Richardson still is questionable for this game. Whether it's Gardner Minshew or Richardson, I just don't see a way that they keep up with the Rams offensively. Yeah, Aaron Donald's going to have a field day. I love the Rams in this matchup, actually.
Yeah, so I like the Rams too. I wouldn't say that I love this game or that I'd go anywhere with it bet wise, if I'm being perfectly honest, just because the Colts defensive line has been so good over the first 3 weeks, and that is one of the bigger weaknesses on this Rams team. And really, that's what the game came down to this past week. Stafford felt the pressure and he made mistakes, and those mistakes cost him the game. So could I see that happening? Of course I could. But I think that Anthony Richardson, he was concussed. I think he's going to play this week. We'll see. But, concussed, he comes back after missing a week. It's going to be a little bit, that 1 week off could hurt him. But I think that the Rams defense has been more impressive to me, at least last week. So when they can get pressure, which I think they'll be able to do this next week, I think they'll be good in games. And like you said, I expect Donald to tear up the Colts offensive line. It really hasn't been all that good. And I think that they're going to win, but I think it's going to be pretty tight this game.
And speaking of tight games, another close Vegas line. A lot of close lines this week, which is what you love to see. It means competitive matchups. We got the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm actually kind of shocked that the Browns are only favored by 2.5 points in this matchup. The way that the Browns have been playing is winning football. Their defense has looked incredible. Their offense is not only creating the small plays, but they're also generating big plays when they need to. Amari Cooper, I mean, you and I love the guy. He's got to be the most underrated receiver. He is still out there producing like an all-pro. Like, it's ridiculous. It's been so many years now that he's just never talked in the top 10 conversation, but every year he ends up being a top 10 wide receiver. It's just insane. I mean, no matter what colors he's wearing, no matter what logo he's got on, he looks great. And against the Ravens beat up team that let up some yards to the Colts last week, the Browns and Colts have a very similar build. It's just the Browns have talent also.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is. I love the Ravens and I love Lamar. So it's really hard for me to ever pick against them. But I think I'd be an idiot not to say that the Browns are going to win this game.
I agree. I'm very high on the Browns this year, and they've shown me exactly why I came in really high on them. They're 2-1, and their one loss came off of two bad plays. Those two defensive touchdowns by the Steelers, but that's a divisional game. Weird shit's gonna happen. I like the Browns in this game at home. Their defense has been outstanding. They've literally smothered every team they've played. I think it's going to – and, I mean, you saw it last week. The Colts defense was giving Lamar fits last week, and I think it's going to be more of the same. I think that it's going to be one of those games where it's going to end up being a one-possession score, but I think it's going to be one of those games where the Browns kind of control the game for pretty much the entire majority of it. And then at the end of the game, the Ravens come in with a backdoor cover, and the Browns only win by 3. Or by 4 or whatever. But I think that the Browns are definitely going to win for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched that Colts-Ravens game that much, but Lamar was under pressure almost every minute. And Lamar is one of the best quarterbacks at scrambling and getting the ball out, and he did a good job of it. But they have a lot of injuries on their offensive line. I expect the Browns to eat great daily fantasy pickup. I think the Browns are going to win this one pretty handedly.
And he rushed for 100 yards too, and they still lost.
Because, like I said, he was under pressure, like he had to run. But up next, we got an interesting game here: the Vikings and the Panthers, a battle of two teams that have yet to pick up a victory. As of now, Bryce Young is still questionable to play in this game. But Andy Dalton looked really good. If Andy Dalton plays, I think that the Panthers have a better chance of winning this game, but I don't see it happening that way. I saw a crazy tweet that was saying that Danielle Hunter is second in sacks, Kirk Cousins is first in passing, and Jefferson's first in receiving. So they have stat leaders on both sides of the ball, yet are somehow 0-3. The Vikings, they looked bad against the Bucs, but now you kind of see, like, before the Eagles, took over that game, the Bucs can, stay in the trenches sometimes. They looked great against the Eagles. I still think they should have won that game. They should have beat the Chargers last week if it wasn't for a boneheaded pass from Cousins, like right in the middle of triple coverage at the end of the game. Think about how much pressure the Chargers coaching would have been under, because that was one of the dumbest things ever. We'll talk about that when we get to the Chargers game, but that was stupid. The Vikings need to win this game. The Vikings have to win this game. There's no doubt about it. They need to win this game, and they will win this game.
I agree. I don't really care who's in at quarterback for the Panthers. Like you said, Dalton looked really good last week, actually. But at the same time, he threw the ball 50 times. I think he had 50 attempts, which could happen again. You never really know. But I do like the Vikings in this game. They've been in close games every single week, and they've just shot themselves in the foot multiple times every single week. It's not just like, they fucked up one play. Every week, it's been 5 plays every week. And, hopefully they clean it up this week. I'm going to take the Vikings as well.
And we'll be on the lookout for a Cam Akers touchdown at plus 400, because Madison is horrible. So bad. And speaking of so bad, we have Joe Burrow. No, I'm kidding. He kind of bounced back a little bit. He looked decent on Monday. Jamar Chase finally was targeted, finally had a bounce back performance, showcased that he still is an elite wide receiver in this league. Bengals Titans here. And this is a game where, if you look back to 2 years ago when they played in the playoffs, the Titans really, Vrabel knows how to coach against Joe Burrow. And I think that that's one of the main reasons why this line is so close. Because, the last time that they faced off, if it wasn't for Tannehill throwing 4 interceptions, they would have ended up handedly winning that game. However, I think that the Bengals just need to break even. They need to get to 2-2. They need to win this game. The Titans secondary is so bad that I think that Joe Burrow is a great start this week. I think that he comes out slinging. I think that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have a great day, and I expect the Bengals to win this one.
I agree. I like the Bengals here. I don't know if they're going to really be slinging it deep too often, but I think they will take shots, and I think that they're going to hit. The Titans, their defense is solid, but their secondary is not. It's weird. It's one of those defenses that if they have any time or if the offense has any time whatsoever, you're going to be able to shred. And you saw it last week. The Browns really got to air it out against them. But yeah, I think that the Bengals are just going to dink and dunk their way down the field, and then 3 big plays to Jamar Chase, and I think that they're going to win this one pretty handily, quite honestly. Probably win by like 10. I'm not the biggest Titans fan. I love Vrabel. I think he's a great coach, but I just think that with a quarterback as precise as Burrow, even though he's not going to be able to run around, I think he's going to hit the throws, and they're going to win the game.
And moving along to one of the games that we considered for our upset of the week, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints. I was a little bit more on the Bucs, but Baker still didn't play horribly against the Eagles. He is due for a horrific performance. And the Saints do have a fantastic defense. Not only their front seven, but their secondary is great as well. Derek Carr is still possibly going to get the start in this one. I don't think he does. I think it ends up being Winston. But the return of Alvin Kamara is the main reason why I'm going to end up picking the Saints in this game. Alexander Mattison, like we said, he's god-awful, but he still had over 50 yards against this Buccaneers defense. And then just look at what the Eagles did, even though they've been doing it to everyone, but still the Buccaneers defense isn't that great against the run. So I expect Kamara to have a fantastic day. I expect Taysom Hill to be utilized in some packages. This is a game that I don't see hitting the over, even though the over-under is 40. I still think it's under that, and I'm going to go with the Saints.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Carr is going to play. This game comes down to one man, Jameis Winston. Is he going to be 3 turnovers, Jameis Winston, or is he going to make a couple big plays here and there and only 1 turnover, quite honestly, because that's what it's going to come down to. But I agree. Kamara coming back is a big deal, and Olave, I think, is going to get peppered with targets, and I think he's going to have a few big plays. I have the Saints winning this game as well.
Oh, okay. So you switched your pick. You went with the Saints?
Well, I was torn on it the whole time, and that's why when we were discussing a few dogs that we kind of liked, I was like barely in on that, and that's why we obviously went with the Bears.
Yeah. And another game that we considered as well is the Dolphins versus the Bills. Pretty close line on this one as well. This is a good week for gambling if you guys want to bet, because everything's like minus 150, plus 150, good value on everything. The Dolphins, I just don't know how you come off of a 70-point win and then lose. They are rolling with so much momentum right now. And the entire the first team didn't play the second half. So they're also going to be pretty healthy. The Bills dominated as well in their matchup last week, but that's against the Commanders. At the end of the day, I still think that the Broncos are a formidable matchup for anyone. Sam Howell just looked horrible. I don't know if you saw the one play where he literally just tossed up the ball, probably threw the ball 3 miles per hour right into the defensive lineman's hands. Then he ran it back for a pick six. Yeah, it was just a miserable performance, and I don't see the Dolphins doing that. If you look at Tua's efficiency this year, his efficiency metrics are not just in the lead, but ridiculously high. Mahomes is here and Tua's all the way up here. He is so much further ahead of every single person right now in the efficiency metric. The crazy thing is they did that 70-point performance without Jalen Waddle. They'll probably get him back this week. I like the Dolphins in this one. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't think it's like when they played in the playoffs last year, you thought it was going to be a decent matchup, but then it just ended up being a dumpster fire. I think that this game actually might be the shootout that we've been expecting to see from these two teams since, the Dolphins ended up getting Tyreek. I think that this ends up great game for Diggs, great game for Tyreek, great game for both quarterbacks. The defenses will start out hot in the first quarter, but just get a little bit tired. I think this is going to be a fun game.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Bills in this one, actually. Like you said, I think that it's going to be a higher scoring game, but I'm going to go with the team that I think actually has a good defense. The Dolphins, I really haven't been all that impressed with their defense. They only gave up 20 last week to the Broncos, but I feel like the Broncos kind of just gave up at some point. Like as a team, they were just like, all right, can we just call the rest of this game? Um, but yeah, I think that with a game like this, the Bills are going to be able to score. And when the Bills are going to be able to score, it's just going to come down to one or two plays. And I'm going to trust the Bills defense to make a couple of stops here and there. At home in Orchard Park, I'm going to go with the Bills on this one.
And up
Great
next,
game.
a game that I don't think we really need to talk about. The Eagles versus the Commanders. I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles in this one. They've just looked great. They finally bounced back. I think this was the first time that they really showed that they were a true contender this week. Hurts looks like he's getting better and a little bit more back to form. I mean, that pass to Olamide Zaccheaus could have been a pick. It just ended up magically going into his hands. So still there's questions around the passing of Hurts, but after what I saw from this Commanders team last week, it is impossible for me not to pick the Eagles to win and cover.
I agree. I think this is going to be pretty comfortable win by the Eagles, at least two scores. I saw today that Hal is like, I don't know if it's the most, but he's on pace to be one of the most sacked quarterbacks ever over the course of a season. He just holds on to the ball too much, and against our defensive line, they're going to tear him up. So I agree. I think this is like a 10 to 14 point victory for the Birds.
Yeah, no, there's just not a way.
It's going to
And
get ugly quick.
the last game in the 1 o'clock window, my God, I've been loving the value. How the hell are the Steelers? This is the first time I've seen the line. So the Steelers are minus 150 against the Houston Texans. I mean, I don't know if Vegas really watched that game against the Jags. Like the Texans weren't that great in that game. They just had so many turnovers, and they were able to get the ball like already in the red zone pretty much every possession. But yeah, I don't see this one being close. I think the Steelers win. I think they cover. Like I mentioned earlier, I think that the run game is just going to have a field day, and the Steelers' offense is getting better and better each week, and I expect it to be great this week. Having T.J. Watt, one of the best defensive players in the league, one of the most dominant defensive players in the league against a rookie quarterback. Good luck, kid. I think the Steelers win this one.
Yeah, I like the Steelers here too. This is again one of those games where I say the final score, or it's only going to be a one-score game, like a field goal to a touchdown win for the Steelers. But it's going to be one of those games that I think the Steelers are going to be in control, winning by two possessions for pretty much the entirety of the game until Stroud comes down with a backdoor touchdown at the end there. But yeah, I think the Steelers are going to win this game too. That defensive line is just too nasty, I think, for this Texans team.
And the first game in the 4 o'clock window, the 4:05 game, is the Raiders versus the Chargers. I would be a little bit more bold in this one and pick the Raiders if I knew the health of Jimmy Garoppolo. Like if I knew Garoppolo was going to start, I would pick the Raiders in this matchup. I still just think that the Chargers just are a dumpster fire of a team, like defensively. I am going to pick the Chargers, though. I just don't think that the Raiders have the firepower to come back. But the Chargers just have horrendous coaching, a horrendous run defense. I think that this is a week where Josh Jacobs ends up going off. If he gets like 20, 25 touches, and if this game's close, I think the Raiders win. But I don't see it happening that way. I think that the Chargers strike early and then strike fast and often. I'm going with the Chargers in this one. But like I said, if I knew that Garoppolo was healthy, after seeing how well his connection with Devontae Adams is last week and knowing that Josh Jacobs can run all over this horrible Chargers run defense, I would pick the Raiders in this one. I think that they still have a chance, but I am going to, like, if I have to make a pick, I'm going to pick the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chargers here, and I think this is the one that they finally get off the mat, and it's not going to come down to the last 30 seconds of the game, the last possession. I think they're actually going to win this game by 10. I've said this for a while. The Raiders have actually looked better than I thought they would so far this year, and I feel like you can say that about a lot of teams. Quite honestly, not many teams have looked like terrible this year. Really, only a handful of teams. Um, but yeah, I think that the Chargers, they're going to be able to score at will against this Raiders team. And, obviously, I think Devontae Adams is going to have a big day, but I kind of think that it's going to be one of those things where it's like, all right, Devontae's going to have his big day, but as long as we can corral the rest of this team, it's not going to be that big of a problem. I'll take the Chargers by 10.
Is it gonna switch? All right. So up next, we got the Cardinals versus the 49ers. I don't know how the NFL keeps doing it, but they keep making these games that should be blowouts in the 4 o'clock window, which is really, really frustrating because after a great slate of 1 o'clock games, you want to watch some fun games, but it just doesn't end up that way. Yes, the Cardinals looked good against the Cowboys, but honestly, I think that game revealed much more about the Cowboys than it revealed about the Cardinals. I don't see a world where the Cardinals win this matchup. I don't know about you, but I think that the 49ers just wipe the floor with them.
I agree. This is a game where I think that the Niners are going to win very comfortably. I wouldn't touch this game with a 15-foot pole when it comes to the spread. If I had a gun to my head, I would take the Cardinals just because to win by more than 2 touchdowns for a team is going to, especially a divisional game, is pretty crazy ask. But like I said, I wouldn't touch that. I think that the 49ers are going to have control of this game pretty much from the beginning. And really, my main point is feel like a lot of people out there are like, oh, the Cardinals have been great every first half, and they have. They've been really, really good in the first half every single week. Like they scored on all 5 possessions against the Cowboys in the first half last week, and it's been every week. Obviously, the Giants they scored all their points in the first half. I think this is the week where it comes to an end. I think that the 49ers are going to have control the entire game, not just the second half.
Yeah, I think the 49ers dominate this one. I mean, it's at home as well. Brock Purdy looks great. Stylistically, this is a really good matchup. Josh Dobbs has played way over his head. I don't think that they have those explosive plays that they had against the Cowboys and the Giants. Yeah, this is really a true test for this Cardinals team. And up next, speaking of the Cowboys game, now I can finally actually talk about it.
I'm excited for this.
As a Cowboys fan, Patriots Cowboys. At the end of the day, as far as this game goes, I am still going to pick the Dallas Cowboys. Zeke touchdown score, lock that in because he is going to get some revenge. I will say this: Zeke had 16 carries last week. Did you know that?
I did
Zeke
not know that.
and Zeke is available in waivers on a lot of leagues right now. And Zeke out-touched Ramondre Stevenson, but at the end of the day, that's a game where they were up against the Jets. And the Patriots aren't going to be up that much this season. I'm still sticking true to the fact that I think that the Cowboys are going to bounce back. This is a game that they should win. I mean, the Patriots struggled to beat a Jets team with Zach Wilson and multiple turnovers. They're not going to be able to do much against the Cowboys. Even like stylistically, I think that the Cardinals are a team even more designed to beat the Cowboys than the Patriots. The Rondale Moore had a fantastic game. Marquise Brown had some open plays. I don't see Mac Jones being able to move the ball that way, especially with the outside weapons that the Patriots do have. I think the Cowboys bounce back. This game, I believe it is in Dallas. Yeah, it's in Dallas. They should reestablish the run game and win this game. However, this is the one thing that I will say that this Cardinals game did prove. I think that it's more obviously you're upset that the Cowboys defense looked worse. I don't think that is because of Trayvon Diggs. That's obviously the immediate reaction that you can make. I don't think that one player, especially a cornerback, can alter a defense to lose to one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I just think it was some big plays. And at the end of the day, the true culprit of that loss was Dak. and just Dak and whatever the offensive scheme is, because up until that point in weeks 1 and 2, it was all the defense and the run game, which are the two strengths of the Cowboys. So you really didn't need to see Dak throw the ball that often. But he did last week. And every year with Dak, you kind of expect him to take a jump to the next level, and he never does. And watching that game, like knowing that it's a bad team, knowing that you're down, that you need to start airing the ball out. Like you have Brandon Cooks, who's one of the fastest receivers on the outside. You have CeeDee Lamb, who's one of the most talented route runners in the NFL. And you're just throwing checkdowns to Dowdle and Jake Ferguson. Like it was the same old Dak, but at the end of the day, same old Dak is still going to beat the Patriots this week.
Yeah, I agree. I'll try and be short and sweet with this because you really dove into it. But I agree. I think the Cowboys are going to win. I actually think that, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, I think them losing makes me feel like they're going to win this week so much more. Because when you looked at games like, every team drops a weird game in the schedule. Every single team does it every single year. Last year, the Eagles lost 3 games. One of them was to the shitty-ass Commanders. So that's just going to happen. I thought that this might be the game where they might drop it just because next week they play the 49ers. A lot of emotions there. The Niners are a phenomenal team, and they've ended your guys' season the past 2 years. But now, obviously, after a loss, the team is going to be extremely motivated to get back on track. And one thing that I think was big, too, obviously, I thought Dak didn't play well. But it was really, to me, the offensive line, especially down in the red zone. Once you guys got in the red zone, the Cardinals just dominated your offensive line, it felt like.
Yeah,
And,
Tyron Smith didn't play.
Yeah, and well, exactly. And it's one of those things where Tyler Smith, I don't think he's played yet. It's like coming into the year, there was health issues with your offensive line, but you were hoping, they'll get better as the year goes on. As of now, they're getting worse, sadly for you guys. But just listen to this coming up. After this game, 49ers, Chargers, Rams, Eagles. That O-line needs to get healthy, and it needs to get healthy soon because the Chargers, while they don't have a great defense, they can score points. But, yeah, I think for today, I think that this week the Cowboys are going to take care of business, and they're going to beat the Patriots pretty handily.
And speaking of a handedly beating, oh, my God, the Kansas City Chiefs. When the NFL booked this as a Sunday nighter, they thought it was going to be Mahomes versus Rodgers, but instead we get the Chiefs on the road against Zach Wilson, who might be the worst quarterback of all time. The fact that Trevor Siemian was signed and might start in the next 2 or 3 weeks is just mind-boggling. It's just insane. Zach Wilson can't be any worse. I think I'm really shocked, honestly, at the money line on this one. Like, is this a trap? Like, how against Justin Fields and the Bears were the Chiefs minus 800, but against Zach Wilson and the Jets, they are only minus 400?
The defense.
So
they actually have a defense.
They do, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the Chiefs are going to win.
Agree.
I think the Chiefs win this game. I think they cover the number, too. Because I just don't see a world where the Jets – like, even if the Jets – hold the Chiefs to like 24 points, which I think is the minimum that the Chiefs are going to score in this matchup, they're not scoring more than 10. So I think the Chiefs cover that number.
I agree. Unless Mahomes throws 2 pick sixes or like there's a fumble 6, I think that the Chiefs are going to win this game handily. I think they'll cover the number as well. Zach Wilson, it comes to a point where like at first you feel bad for the guy, but at this point he's hurting me because every time I watch his Jets play, my eyes start burning. He's god awful. They need to do something. Even if it's Trevor Siemian, I'll give it a shot. Just please anything other than him. He's god awful. Yeah, like you said, even if the Chiefs only score 21, they'll still score 11 more points than the Jets and the Chiefs defense has been good this year too. So it's not like just because the Jets are so bad. The Chiefs defensive line has been really, really good this year, and their secondary has been really, really good this year. I'm so upset that Rodgers is hurt because this went from being one of the games I was most excited in our video we did before the year. This was one of the games I was most excited for on the year, and now it might be the game I'm least excited for the year.
And up next, another interestingly close line. We have the Seahawks versus the Giants in a pick'em. This it's fishy. It's fishy to me. I a lot of these lines are making me think that there's going to be a lot of traps this week, and we might not be as accurate as we were. Like, I don't know. I just don't like how we've picked so many minus 130 favorites, and we're like, oh, this is good value on them, when in reality, that might not be. Like, in my opinion, I think that the Seahawks win this game very easily. They're minus 105. I like that. The Giants haven't shown to have a run defense. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are a fantastic 1-2 punch. Geno Smith looks like he's gotten his shit together in the last 2 weeks. And honestly, Andy Dalton had a great game. Like, it wasn't like it was like, wow, they let the Panthers score 20 points. Like, Andy Dalton was making plays. Adam Thielen made plays. DJ Chark made plays. Can the Giants make plays like that? I don't think so. So at the end of the day, I am going to go with the Seahawks in this one. This is going to be a game where if I win a lot of money on Monday, I'm going to bet the Seahawks. And if I lose a lot of money on Sunday, I'm going to bet the Seahawks. And it's either going to break or make my week.
Yeah, this game is one that I don't even want to touch. Like, I'd rather just not even give a pick. I just have this weird feeling that the Giants are going to win. I'm thinking that maybe finally losing both of their tackles is going to hurt them for the Seahawks, like it did in Week 1 in that second half. But I'm not very confident in it at all. I just lean Giants with the extra rest. I trust that Dayball is going to be able to write up some plays. Now that he knows he doesn't have Barkley, I think that he's going to have something schemed up to where the offense is productive, and
He
I
might
think
play.
that yeah, he might play quarterback, or not quarterback. He might play running back. But no, I think that the Giants are going to pull this one out. This isn't something that I'm extremely confident in. I just kind of have a gut feeling about it, so I'm going to go Giants.
Yeah, if Saquon's back, I definitely see the case, because the Seahawks run defense hasn't been that great either. And now that we have our picks out of the way, I just want to get into our starts of the week. And I'm actually going to go with your start of the week from last week. I'm going with Justin Fields because I have to. Tua just put up 70 points against this Broncos team. Justin Fields, everything that he said leading up to last week gave some positivity that he was going to bounce back. It's just hard to do in a negative game script against the Kansas City Chiefs. But this is the Denver Broncos. I expect him to have a great game on the feet and a great game through the air. I think that he gets around 4 total touchdowns in this game, including passing and rushing. If it's 3 rushing, you're going to love that even more for a fantasy day, but you'll take a 2-2.
Yeah, I think he's going to bounce back this week. I just don't think that the Broncos are going to be able to maintain him. Going into my quarterback start of the week, I'm going to go with my boy, Jordan Love. I think that the Packers are going to win this game. Like I said earlier, I think Aaron Jones and Christian Watson are going to play. And, so he's going to be at the full of his skill players. Obviously, Bakhtiari is still out, but we saw what Jones did week 1. I personally am a really, really big fan of Christian Watson. I think that he's extremely athletic, and he's going to be that big, deep field downfield deep threat. And that way, I've said it earlier too, Musgrave's been open a ton of times and he's been missed. I think that it's going to be that much harder to cover him, and that's part of the reason I think he's going to have such a big game. But I think Love is going to be fantastic, and that's why they're going to win.
Yeah, I like it as well. I mean, like I said earlier, I think that they're going to hit that over of 46. And for my running back start of the week, my touchdown score, I'm just going to parlay it here with my running back start of the week in Najee Harris. 2 touchdowns. I think it's happening for him. I thought it was going to happen last week against the bad Raiders run defense, but it's going to happen this week against the Texans. Even if he doesn't get the yardage, he's going to get the goal line work, but I do think he gets the yardage as well. So I think the upside's there.
And my running back start of the week going to be Roschon Johnson. We've both talked a million times on how talented we think he is. I think this is the week that he's going to get enough touches to where it's going to matter. He's been efficient in the touches he's gotten, and like we've said earlier, we think the Bears are going to win this game. I personally think that they're going to be able to run it down their throats, and I think Roschon is going to be the biggest benefactor of that. I think he's going to have a huge day.
I love Roshan as well. Can't argue with that. Have him in my DFS lineups. For my wide receiver start of the week, I have Adam Thielen, who is actually, you wouldn't believe it, but he's actually the number 9 wide receiver in fantasy football through 3 weeks. And a lot of that came from having Andy Dalton as his quarterback last week. He absolutely ate. This is his revenge game against his former team in Minnesota. Just so many targets. You can't really argue against 13, 14, 15 targets. And I expect that to continue in this game, especially a game that both of us think that the Vikings are going to go up. So they're going to need to pass a lot. I love Thielen in this matchup.
Yeah, target monster. I'm going to go with Chris Olave. And not that he hasn't been great all year, but he's going to get the Jameis Winston bump. Jameis Winston is not allowed to, or not afraid, I'm sorry, to hyper target his receivers, and he's not afraid to sling it downfield. I think Olave is going to have a couple, multiple big plays, 20-plus yard plays, and I think that he's finally going to find his way into the end zone this week. I think he's going to have a monster day. I'm talking 120 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I saw a stat that was saying that he actually has the most receiving yards of any wide receiver without a touchdown. So he's definitely due for a touchdown this week.
He was about that close from getting one too last week.
Yeah, he was. And I'm going to go with your touchdown scorer guy. I'm going to go with Luke Musgrave. The Lions are statistically the worst defense in the league against tight ends. Crazy to think if Travis Kelce played week 1, how different that stat would be. But yeah, Luke Musgrave, he's been getting targets. That's the thing that you're really liking between these rookie tight ends this year, and it's been rare to see. But between Musgrave and Laporta, they're each averaging over 7 targets, and in Laporta's case, 11. That's so many targets for a rookie tight end. And in this matchup where I believe the outside threats are going to be neutralized, I love Musgrave in this one. Like you said, if he's getting a touchdown, he is definitely worth being a start of the week.
Yeah, that's my favorite start of the week that you had. I love Musgrave this week. He would have been in contention for me. My start of the week, I'm going to go with Evan Ingram. And he's one of those guys who, the years he's blown up, he's been boom or bust. Like last year, he would score 40 points, and then the next week he would score 3. And then this year, through the first 3 weeks, he's just been consistently getting double digits every single week, but he hasn't had that blow-up game. I think this is the game where he finally finds himself in the end zone, and he has a really big day. So I'm going to go with Evan Ingram. I think he's going to be great this week.
Yeah, and he's another guy that hasn't really found the end zone, but has been so consistent. Right now, he's 3rd among all tight ends in yards. Can't argue that. I'd like him to find the end zone as well this weekend. And finally, we haven't discussed this yet, so I will go back to our regular podcast display. But our suicide picks, even though yours was eliminated last week, I still get to go and see if I can make it one more week. Last week, I went with the 49ers. This week, I am going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm saving my Kansas City Chiefs share. I'm not going to play it safe and pick the Chiefs against the Jets. I just need this Vikings team to win. I'm rooting for them so hard. That's been one of the games that I've been watching intently every single week. And last week, I just wanted them to beat the Chargers so bad, especially after that call, which we still have yet to address. Did you see that the Chargers went for it on 4th down with a minute and a half left in their own 30?
I did, but do you want to hear something that you're going to find shocking? I don't think that's the dumbest thing that Staley did in that game. Did you see when it was 3rd and 6 and the Vikings had an incomplete that they had an incomplete pass? So it's either, but there was a holding. So it's either 4th and 6 on the 30-something, 40-ish yard line, or it's 3rd and 16. You kick the Vikings back. The Vikings have been aggressive all year. You know that there's a chance that they'll go for it on 4th down. They decline the penalty. The Vikings go for it. KJ Osborne gets a 38-yard touchdown. That's what I thought was most disturbing. But I agree. In that specific situation, I'm more upset with the play. I don't think it's a great idea on that close in or that deep into your own territory. But if you're going to do it, I don't love giving it to the worst player on your entire offense. Think of a quick, a zig route for Keenan Allen. Do a QB sneak with your 6'5", 240-pound running back. But yeah, I agree. In that situation, I wouldn't have done it. Even though in that one, like I said, at least I get the reasoning behind it because the Vikings just had their way all day.
Yeah. They just need to win, and that's why I'm going to roll with them as my suicide pick. We hope you guys all enjoyed this. Like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. Next week will be the return of bets and DFS, so stay tuned. We will catch y'all later.